This is a book nook that I made off of a YouTube program. It's Spellbound Miniatures, and it was a medieval book nook, but I wanted a book nook that I could use as a prototype to do the workshop. And I also liked this particular book nook, so I just might get it finished, but I don't know. So without finishing it, a book nook is very boring. On this picture here, the door is just leaned up against the front, and this is the book nook without the front. Okay, so we're going to do the sides first, and you can do lots of things on the sides, but I'm going to talk about doing silhouettes, using scrapbook paper, and faux finishes. This is the silhouette from this medieval book nook that Spellbound Miniatures did, and it was cut on my Cricut. It looks really nice, but it kind of chewed it up in this area here. And I actually found that you can do a better job with your X-Acto knife. So this is just to show you one example of a silhouette. So I asked people who were doing book nooks to send me some of their themes, and I only heard from one or two people, and I think the person who said she was doing a farm scene was Maureen Moeller. So I decided to look for a farm scene. So when I'm working on things that I'm making, I usually go to Google Images, and I either search for images of the item or I search for clip art, depending on what I want to do with it. So to get this particular image that I've got on the screen now, I did a search and I put black and white farm silhouette clip art. And this way I didn't have to scroll through a whole bunch of other farm things. And I picked this one, I quite liked it. So what I do on my computer, and I know everybody's got things a little bit different, but when I find an image I like, I open it. And on my computer, it opens in a program called Preview. And from there, I can print it. And when the dialog box opens up on my printer, it gives me, I can see the size of the image that Preview has sent. And if it's too big or too small, I can change the percentage and change the size. So with this image, it was at 100%, but was only a small image in the middle of the page. And I ended up increasing it to, I think, 160% and got the size that you see right there. And when I printed it and measured it, I needed at least 9 inches, and it worked out really well. So I used the printer to adjust the size. Now to do the silhouette, what you need is your printed image. I went to Michael's and picked up some scrapbooking paper, and I picked up this black. And over here, I have white transfer paper. And I'm using that to copy the image onto the black. If I'd used black transfer paper, I wouldn't have been able to see it. So you need those 3 sheets. I take the image and I tape it on one end, one side, either the top or the side, because I like to check as I'm transferring it to make sure that everything's going okay. And if I forget, to see if I've missed a line or something. So tape that onto your black paper and then slide the transfer paper underneath, making sure you've got it in the right direction, because one side is coated and the other side isn't. And lots of times I've had it upside down and merely transferred and had nothing to show for it. So these are the tools that I use. If I've got a lot of straight lines, like in this case, the barn, I use a ruler for the straight lines, and I also use a very fine tipped stylus. You can use a ballpoint, but when you're doing an intricate design, the finer your tip, your stylus, the better your image will turn out. Does anybody have any questions about this part? No? Okay. So this is the image that was traced. I simplified it. You don't need to put every little bump in the tree if you don't want to, I also left out the windmill. And so now I can start cutting it out. So I used the ruler to cut out all the straight lines. And I started out using a really fine pair of fine tipped scissors, thinking that was going to work, and it didn't. It was really difficult. So I ended up using my X-Acto blade, and it worked fantastic. So if any of you have done machine embroidering, like on a sewing machine, obviously your needle can't move, so you end up moving your material around. And that's exactly what I did with the paper. When I would come to a point with my X-Acto knife, instead of moving the knife and changing the direction of the knife, I just swung the paper around until the line was in the direction I needed to cut. And in a curved area, you end up swinging the line a lot, but it cut really well. Any questions? No. So this is the image. Like I said, I was really pleased with the way the X-Acto knife cut it out. And so that's on the chipboard brown with the black on top of it. I didn't want to cut these thin lines for the fence, so I just used a black felt pen and drew it right on the side of the board. So I thought maybe I was thinking about Harry Potter. So again, I went into Google Images and just put in Harry Potter, black and white silhouette clip art. And these initials came up, and I really liked the look of them, and they were a lot simpler to cut out than the farm image. So this is the printed copy. I used a silvery paper and the X-Acto knife to cut out the initials. And I got this charcoal glittery, like if you see it in person, it's got a shimmer to it as well. And so that covers the sides and the Harry Potter initials. Now you could easily make these a little bit smaller, and you could put them on a door on the front of the book nook if you wanted to. So these are just examples of papers from the scrapbook aisle at Michael's. So I really like this one, reclaimed wood, but you could put it on the side of the book nook if you had a Western theme or outdoors country theme. It's really, I find it really nice. This one is sunlight sparkling on water. You could use it if you were having a tropical or beach theme, and maybe you could do a silhouette of a palm tree on the side as well as the water. And then this one, I just like the design and the colors, and was thinking if you were doing something like a she shed in the book nook, you could put that as just a decorative paper. So with all the different types of papers they've got in scrapbooking, you're bound to find something that would fit into a theme that would make the outside of the box more attractive. Was there any questions for that last one? No. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about finishing the front of the book nooks. And I went into Google Images again, and I just did screenshots of examples of different front finishes. And these, I was thinking with the workshop that Jillian gave us, you could easily do your fronts like this. This one is cute with this curve in it, but you could also do the sides, the outsides with a faux brick or stone finish. That would look nice, and it would tie in with the front of the book nooks. So here's another one with a real jagged cutout edge that I really like this. I don't particularly like the color of the bricks, but I like this feeling of the wall sort of being there. And this one was interesting because they've done absolutely nothing on the front of it, but because they've got all of this foliage really close to the front, it sort of becomes its own type of screen or finish. with all the different kinds of greens and textures in there. I found that really pretty. And so here's another example, is this label that's at the top of the book nook. And if you had tools, like a laser cutter or a Cricut, you could probably cut it out easier, but I believe you can do it with an X-Acto knife as well. So you could cut out the shape from an illustration board, and then the edging around here, you could use cardstock and cut 3 or 4 pieces and glue them on to give you some depth in there. And as far as the lettering is concerned, you can either go to Michael's and pick up some lettering that's peel and stick, like the example on the side here, or you can again go into clip art and find the lettering that you like and keep it flat and just transfer it onto the background here, and using a gold pen color it in. Or if you're really good at calligraphy, which I'm not, you could do the printing yourself. And it's kind of a nice finish at the front of this obviously Harry Potter themed book nook. So I'm going to show you how to make a framed front. And this is an example of a book nook with just a frame around the front of it. And with Tina's plexiglass, a frame would finish it off really nice. It gives some depth to it. So I went to Michael's and went through their clearance section and found this frame, a wooden frame. You don't want to get a metal one because obviously you can't cut it down. But I kind of think that with the right saw, like miter saw, you could cut plastic as well. But this is wood, and it's quite a simple one, but it was also very cheap. So I picked that up, took it apart, and this is the first corner that I used my miter saw. And what I've got is that little silver miter box that we use for miniature strip wood. And that saw is a beautiful little saw. The only problem is that the thickness of this frame was just about at the maximum depth that that saw could handle. But this is the first cut I made, and I was really pleased with it. This is just a picture of the back of the frame. And that's what's nice about using a frame, is because your door or trim, front trim, will fit right into this groove here. So this is what I used to cut the frame, was my little miter saw. Years ago, I used to have a regular miter saw, and I wish I'd had it for this because it was a bit of a challenge. The frame sat right up on the very top of the saw when I was working on it. But I cut 3 of the corners, but I left 1 corner intact. And this is the corner that will stabilize everything as I work on it. And here's the front panel frame of the book nook. And I've placed it into that corner that I left. And I've marked the angle where the next corner is supposed to be. You can see it here. I have a hard time with angles when I don't have something to reference them to. So I find that this helps a lot if I've got a mark in the direction that I have to cut it. And there I am cutting away. It worked really well. That's such a beautiful little saw. The cut is really fine. And so I cut, there's the first corner, and that I've cut. And where am I here? Let me go back. Yeah, so what I've done is I cut this one, I cut this this angle open, and then I cut this piece of the frame down to the right size, and there's the angle. Now these 2 here at the end have to be cut shorter to fit the frame. And so they have to be cut off in these directions here. And you can see the marks that I've made on each side. And there's the frame with all 3 angles, corners cut, ready to be glued. And this was just a dry fit to see how it fit together. And I was really pleased with how well those corners did go in. So I used LePage's Express Quick Dry Wood Glue, and I glued the corners and then set it up in a gluing jig to hold it square and left it to dry overnight. And this corner is glued, but it's got a great big gap in it. So I used DAP, a spackling compound, and filled it up. And then as soon as it was dry, I sanded it and got ready to paint it. And in every workshop, there's usually 1 or 2 times that I forget to take pictures, and this is the next one. I didn't take a picture of the first base coat that I painted the frame. I painted it a dark green, and then I just took a soft cloth and some gold paint and wiped it on, and then I dry brushed in the corners of the frame where the cloth couldn't reach properly. And this is the frame on the book nook. Now, one of the things that bothers me about using frames like this is that it lifts the front up and the back is lower. And if the frame is fairly narrow like this one is, it doesn't make too much of a difference. But if you get a really decorative frame and it's a deep frame, you end up with quite an angle. So I usually find something that I can use as legs that I put on the back and level the back and the front corner out so that it sits level instead of at an angle. But that's just a personal preference. It's not that important, I guess. Okay, are there any questions about that last section? No? Okay. Well, we're
No,
going to go.
that was really good, Mark. That
Oh,
was really, really good. I enjoyed the way you did that.
Good. Thanks, Joanne. Okay, now we're going to do a full book front. And again, I go to my favorite place, Google Images, and I searched for books and took screenshots of some examples because I like to know what things look like before I try to make them. And so here I wanted to see all the different variations in spine size, height, and color in this one. This one I liked because of these ridges that you see on the spines of the books. Plus there's a sort of a different type of decoration on these books than there were on those first ones. These I love because of these gold decorations that are on it. And these, I think that's a gorgeous picture of books, but it's just the color tones and the decoration, the spines. This is an embossed leather, which would be hard to make, but no, I think they're beautiful. These 2 pictures I wanted because I wanted to see the wearing on the ends and the tops, because I wasn't sure whether I wanted to duplicate that type of old worn, and the same with this this stack of books, and looking at the spines, how the spines are in these corners, because these are bound books. Most of our books today are just glued pages, and these aren't. You can see the page divisions in this little piece here. Okay, so I made the full books out of cardboard tubes from paper towels. And my mouse keeps jumping away. This is the paper towel before I flatten it. So I flattened it out with my fingers because I didn't want to lose the kind of curviness of the paper towel, but I obviously didn't want this real round curve. I wanted more of a flat curve. And then I took my roller and I just rolled along the edge as hard as I could to flatten that edge out. Whoops, sorry. Without flattening out the middle. I just wanted more of a knife edge on the outside edge. So I thought I was going to be stuck with 3 sizes the same, but I scrounged around through my stash and found a cardboard tube that had been in wrapping paper. And so it was the same weight of cardboard, but it was a thinner tube. So at least I was able to get 2 different sizes. So these are the 3 sizes. Whenever I'm working with a paper product and I know I'm going to be painting and stuff, I like to spray it with Krylon fixative. Um, I'm not sure whether it's completely necessary. It's just that I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I took them outside onto my step and sprayed the stinky stuff and let them dry. So when you go back to these, there's a curve there, but you can see how this is kind of twisted and this one's really twisted. I was trying to figure out how I could keep the curve and stabilize it. So, oh dear, what happened here? Okay, here we are. Must have hit the wrong button. So I took some cardstock and curved the roll to the size I wanted and measured this distance here, and then measured the length I wanted and cut it out and glued right along this edge and glued the curved edge of the tube onto this flat piece of cardstock. It stabilizes the curve, keeps the curve the way I wanted it to, but it also gives me this flat surface to be able to glue it onto the door front. So it ended up being a 2-purpose thing. It was good. Then I went looking for some cord. And since miniatures never throw anything out, I found a pile of cord that came off of an old blind that I threw away a couple of years ago. But of course, the cord was too good to throw away. So I had it sitting in a drawer. And this is going to become the spines of the book spine, of the ridges of the spine. So I just measured them out and then glued them down. The one, if they were too long like this one, I just took my blade and chopped them off right on the edge there. So there's the 3 spines with their, I was trying to vary the size of this and I realized I got that one almost exactly in the same place, but that's okay. Because this is what I was trying to duplicate, was the look of these books sitting, and their spines are all in different places. So I also took some of that cord and I put it around the very top part of the spine, because when you look at books that have been bound, there is a small cord in there that where the pages are stitched onto it. So I put that in there to duplicate that, and it's usually colored. I've seen them red, dark gold, yellow, orange. So I got a marker and I just colored it an orangey color. So I've been using tissue paper to make faux leather for years, and I really like the effect of it. So if you were going to paint this a dark green or a dark red, and you had some red tissue paper, go ahead and use it. Because you're going to paint it anyways, it doesn't matter what color you start off with. But I usually use this tan or beige paper or white. So you have to crinkle it, and I mean really crinkle it. So I ball it up in my hand as tight as I can get it. I open it up and I do that back and forth several times because I want a really fine crinkle texture to it. I don't want big creases. I want them really fine. And I must do that 2 or 3 times. And when I open it up, I usually find areas that haven't been crushed enough. So I do it, like I said, several times. And then I open it up these big creases will come out, but this is the kind of creases I'm looking for are these small ones that are in here, because when you put it down, because leather doesn't have great big creases in it, it has a fine texture and it looks really close to what leather looks like. So I did this in sections. So the first section, I put lots of glue on the spine and on the first ridge and behind the first ridge. And you can use lots of glue for this stuff. And then I smooth it out with my finger, because if not, you get the glue ridges underneath the tissue paper. And then I just laid the tissue paper over the top and gently smoothed out any large creases, and then gently edged it right into this, along this cord and on the opposite side as well, so that you didn't have a big gap of tissue paper here. And while the tissue paper is wet with glue, it's quite malleable. If you tear it, don't worry about it. Just stick it back on, overlap the torn edges with paper that's already on what you're gluing, and it'll completely disappear. When you paint it, you won't even know where you've ripped it. So I did it in sections. So I went that section and then the next one and the next one and the next one. Now I'm showing you this because in this section, I forgot to smooth it out with my fingers, and you can see the lines of the glue. And you can still see it over here. By the time I painted it, I couldn't see it anymore. But if I had caught it soon enough, I would have gently peeled that back and tried to fix it. So there is one spine completely done. There's lots of excess paper here, and not to worry about it. We'll be gluing it and getting rid of it in a few minutes. So here's the 3 all done. Trimmed. So flipped over onto the back and put a really fine bead of glue along the edge of that back piece, and folded the tissue paper over and tapped it down into that edge. Once it dries, we'll be trimming as close to that edge as we can. Did that with all 3. Oh, and the other thing is, when you're putting this tissue paper on, at the very edge of your cord, really kind of tuck it in so that there isn't a gob of paper or something, because you want this to be as tight against the spine as you possibly can when you put it on the door frame. So there is the side trimmed, and up here along this cord, I trimmed it to, about 1/8 of an inch. And there's still wet glue here, and I just took my fingernail and I just crushed it in. I didn't trim it at all. I just crushed it. So it made almost like a kind of a messy rolled edge right along that cord. And then on the bottom, I just folded it over and glued it on the back and trimmed the excess pieces off. Here's a picture of me pushing it down with my fingernail. And this is the green spine with its base coat, and I just painted over that folded bottom. And all it does is, first of all, it carries the color underneath, so you don't notice a different color there, but it also strengthens the tissue paper a little bit. So there's the 3 spines with their first layer of paint. And you can see, especially on the brown one, you can see little bits of lightness, and that's not to be worried about at all, because leather isn't all a solid color anyways. And by the time you finish the other layers of dry brushing, it'll just add to the overall texture. So then you start dry brushing. You can see this area down here that I've already dry brushed, and this is the area up here I haven't. The first layer is going to be a darker tone than your base coat. And even though you're you're dry brushing, which means you've got very little paint on your brush, you still have to start off with a wet brush. You never start off with a dry brush. So you wet it in your water and then you really pounce it on your paper towel to get as much moisture out as you can. If you put paint in a dry brush, it clumps. It doesn't smooth out over the bristles at all. It just stays in dry clumps in your brush. And then when you're trying to dry brush, you're going to have heavy clumps of paint rather than have it distributed through the brush properly. So you pounce it in the brown, and then you go over to your paper towel and you pounce like mad and get all the paint off of it until you've got about, right here is about as much paint as you want in that brush. And usually I have a piece of paper beside me that I can practice on until I get the brush to the right amount of paint. But with these, I just flipped them over and I did the testing on the back of the spines until you get it to the point where you like the amount of paint that's left in the brush. And so, where's my cursor? So you start dry brushing and you pay attention to these creases. And I don't push the brush really hard against the surface. And I also don't pull it across because I don't want the streaks going in a certain direction. What I do is I use sort of a circular motion and very lightly build up the layers. So down here, I've probably done it about 3 times, very lightly. Up here, you can see probably the first amount of dry brushing I put on it. And because it's dry, it dries instantly. So you can just keep doing it until you've got a depth of color that you're happy with. So that's where I started the dry brushing. On this one, because the green was so dark, the dark green or the dark color that I used wasn't dark enough. So you can see it more with the naked eye, but it doesn't look like there's much dry brushing on here, but there is. And the same with this one. There is dry brushing here. You can see sort of a different green color through here. So it's sort of modeled. But on this one, you can see I got dark spots. If that really bothers you, all you need to do is take your base coat paint and paint over that dark spot and cover it again with dry brushing until you're happy with it. Personally, I didn't mind that. If I'd had a huge spot, then I would have done something about it. But by the time all the other stuff is put on, that's just going to blend in with the full finish anyways. The other thing is the brush I'm using. The best dry brush you can have is a really abused, ruined brush. This one was a round, which means it came to a point, and it was so old that I couldn't use it for any good painting anymore. So I cut it off. I cut the bristles off on a flat edge about a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch from the ferrule. And then I just really pushed it, like pounded it straight down. So I spread out all the bristles on the table and kept doing that. And over the years, it's got better and better. So it's a soft brush, but it's all spread out and it doesn't come together. So I have a bigger area that I can carry the paint on. Stencil brushes don't work well for dry brushing because their bristles are too hard and they'll drag the paint in lines rather than dapple it softly like a soft brush will. So don't throw out any old brushes. They actually become your favorites. So this step, I dry brushed with a lighter color. And in the first step with the dark dry brush, I didn't pay any attention to these cords. But with the light dry brushing, I specifically dragged the brush back and forth over the top of the cord. I wasn't worried about getting down underneath of it, just the top with the lighter color so that it would give them more emphasis. And you can see the lightness sitting on top of these wrinkles. And so we did a layer of light. And after I'd finished, I looked at it and thought, I want you to pop a bit more. So then I took some gold, and the final layer was dry brushing with gold paint, and just very lightly because the gold is quite intense. So it picks up quicker. But I also went over the spines with a bit of the gold dry brushing, and yeah, you can see. And I also concentrated sort of down the middle of the books, the spines where the curve is at its highest, just to give that a little bit of a emphasis, as if it's catching the light a little bit more. I notice it now, but there's the crease in the cardboard roll. You can see it in both these. Oh yeah, I can see it over here too. Oh well, that's okay. So then I wanted to do the gold trim, and there's no way that, well, maybe I know some people can do it. They can just take a gold pen and do that intricate design. But this design is just done with me squiggling the pen in every direction. I just went like this with the pen nib, around and around and just back and forth, and until I thought it filled in enough. Up here, I experimented with doing a straight line on top and the bottom of the design. And then I went down and did a bit more. And I just randomly did it on all of the spines. This is the pen I used, calligrapher in gold. I have absolutely no idea where I got it from. You can see the nib. The nib is fine, but it's flat like a calligraphy pen. I either got it at Michael's, which I doubt because I find Michael's prices for pens are too high. So I probably got it at Delta Art Supply, but I've had it for a while and I don't know, but it's a really nice pen. And then I also did a little bit on the spines. So this is the three of them all finished. And I tried some different techniques with the gold pen. And I'm not very good at freehand printing, but I wanted to see what the book would look like with a title. So I wrote with that pen, The Grimm Brothers Fairy Tales. So that is the books, the full book spines finished. Is there any questions about the process at all? No? Okay.
They're wonderful, Mark. Absolutely tremendous.
It's kind of neat that they're
Oh.
just cardboard tubes, eh?
Oh, they're just wonderful.
That is amazing. And you make it look easy. I know I would end up with a garbage can full of tissue paper, but
No, actually it is easy. That tissue paper is easy to put on as long as you do it in small, and it's very forgiving in small batches. It
Beautiful
would be
job.
hard to do like I wouldn't want to try and do the whole spine in one gluing because I'd have glue all over myself and all over everything.
I honestly thought you used a stencil with that gold
Oh,
pen. It
no.
does not look like squiggles at all. It looks
Well, it is.
wonderful.
See, look here, you can see the
Yeah.
lines. Yeah. But when you glance at it, it looks different, doesn't it?
It
Yeah.
does.
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They're wonderful. Really, really wonderful.
Well, so now we have to glue them onto the board. So I knew that when I laid them out, this is the door. When I laid them out, they were a little bit wider than what the door was. So I wanted to really push them for a couple of reasons. I wanted them to fit in this space, but I also didn't want any gaps in between the books. I wanted them to look like tight books on a shelf. So decided to glue the first one, the middle one in first, and let that really dry so that I had something I could push the other ones against. So tons of glue and that flat backing on it, glued it down and put these weights on top. They're not heavy enough to flatten the curve, but also the backing on here stopped the curve from flattening as well and left it overnight. And here is the finished door with the, I glued the other two. I glued them one at a time, used a cabinet to push against. And so I was pushing against the middle one and pushing against a flat side to get them to fit into the space. And I'm glad that the space was a little tiny bit smaller than the books because it did really push them against one another. So here there with the book. So I thought that's as far as I was going to go, and it kept kind of bugging me. So here's the next stage. Okay, so what you can do with each side here is the same technique you used on the spines. Lots and lots of glue. When you use tissue paper that's going to cover, like, it doesn't matter whether it's covering a small area like this or a large area, make sure that you cut it really wide and long, because you don't want it to be too short. It always loses a bit of measurement when you crunch it up. And so start gluing at the top and lay it down and tap it down and get it the way you want it. And then you glue the next section, lay it down, and I'm always surprised at, if tissue paper tears, it's easy to kind of stick it down, but it actually has got a little bit of strength there. So you can kind of tug it and smooth it with your fingers and everything. So you do the dark green on this side and the brown on this side, and you finish the edges, sides, exactly the same way you do here. I wouldn't put any gold decorations on unless you want to, but most of the time the covers are bare. Then I took I got some ivory colored cardstock, and I took the spines and tipped them up on their tops and traced along the curve. And I put the edge of them along the edge of the cardstock, so I had a flat edge there, and I just traced along here. Then when I cut it out, I cut them a little bit smaller so they would fit inside this curve. And you can see it here. And that way the door opens, because I thought I can cover the top of it and make it look like the top of a book, but then this isn't going to match. But this way the door can open up and it does match. So I took the cord and I cut the length of this length here, cut this length with about an 1/8 inch extra for this little tiny bit on the door. And I painted them. I painted 2 for the brown, 2 for the green, and 2 for the dark green. And then I laid the cord out as if it's the spines or the covers of the books. And that is the end of the book nook. It was fun to do that one.
Does it open, Mark?
Yep, it does. But that's the other thing I've got to talk about is I was going to do a thing with hinges. And so a couple of nights ago, I went into my stash of hinges, and all I had were little tiny hinges, and realized I didn't have hinges to be able to actually do the workshop on how to put the book, the front cover on. So what I suggest everyone do, because this is how I found out how to do it, is Spellbound Miniatures. This book nook I'm doing is called the Medieval Book Nook. And she's got 5 chapters in it. And in chapter 4 and chapter 5, she completely covers how to put 3 different types of doors in using hinges. And one door, she's actually put a very weak magnet so that the door catches and stays shut. That door is the one that she's got at the back to cover the lights and the battery. And the other door is this one here. This is the front door, but she also has this little arch doorway that opens as well. So when you have this shut, you can open this door and look inside, or you can look through this little peephole and look inside at the skeleton, whatever it's doing. But what I like about her tutorial is she talks about what stage to put the hinges in so that you can cover them up. Like you would have the outside hinge here, and then you would put the covering for the book nook on top of it. So all you would see is the little barrel. So there is a certain stage in the making of things that you put the hinges on so that you don't have to see them, because they're not decorative hinges. They're just the regular brass hinges. But the ones she used are big ones, so they would handle a larger door. The ones I got must be for quarter scale because they're really tiny. And on the only thing that I'm going to try, and I haven't, is using that material that I've heard them talk about that come in mailing envelopes. It's supposed to be really strong, and you can cut that down and use it as a hinge.
Oh, the
But-
Tyvek.
Yes, yeah. I've got some pieces of it in my stash, and one of these days I'm going to give it a try. She doesn't, she glues her hinges in. She doesn't use any nails, but then she hides the hinges. So it isn't necessary. She uses crazy glue. But I found this when we first started talking about book nooks, and Tina had asked me to do a workshop, and I went online and just Googled book nooks, and I ended up at her website or her YouTube site. And to be able to construct a book nook, this is an excellent program. The only thing is that she uses a Cricut to cut everything, but you don't need to have a Cricut. You can use a straight edge and an X-Acto knife. And it just means that you measure things out yourself. But the actual construction of the book nook is really good. But I found her tutorial on the hinging the doors especially good. So that is the end of my workshop. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Or is there any place that anybody wants to go back and take another look at? No?
That was terrific. Absolutely
Okay.
terrific, Mark.
Yes, that was great.
Thank you for all the hard work you went to putting that together. That's just excellent.
Oh, that's